Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. And with me today is Sam West. And today we're talking about Fireball.
An iconic one.
Yeah. All right. Initial thoughts, Sam.
Fireball is iconic because they decided Fireball is going to be iconic. If we're going to be entirely honest, this spell is Wizards of the Coast, the game designers.
Oh, are you talking about? All right, because it's huge, and you're talking fifth edition specifically.
Yes,
Okay.
Older editions, I'm pretty sure it became iconic just because it incidentally was really good. Same with Lightning Bolt.
I think just because, like, just quintessential Magic, giant big ass ball of fire.
Yeah, it's basically a grenade in your back pocket. Who wouldn't want that? Fireball is I'm pretty sure the designers have talked about it and come out and been like, yeah, we deliberately overshot the damage on this one in Lightning Bolt. It's above where the par is for the course for third level spells normally. They even have like a little section in the Dungeon Master's Guide talking about building your own custom spells, and they recommend 66 damage for an area of effect third level spell. This hits 86. That's notably 7 damage more, which is a very large deal. It is this Fireball becomes the damage standard for the game at 5th level and irreversibly changes how your DM has to prepare encounters. It irreversibly changes the kind of threat small monsters can pose in specific environments. I think the Fireball clearly designates a split between the lowest tier of play and the mid tier of play, where you're going from pretty standard scuffled encounters where there's a real threat of death from even the smallest little cretin to reasonably capable of dealing with hordes, reasonably capable of dealing with diverse threats, having broader solutions to different kinds of monster groups. It dramatically opens up combat dynamic, I think, in a way that I think is probably net beneficial, but definitely has some caveats and hurdles that other classes feel.
Yeah. All right. I agree with all that. No, that's
Sure. It's messy. It's complicated. It's also table dependent and meta dependent and depends on everyone else's builds and stuff. But for the most part, what Fireball does is create a gigantic death zone where anything that has less than 46 HP automatically dies. And 46, because that's half the damage, right? Even if they save, they take 46 damage. That's half the D6 damage. Worst case scenario, things are taking 12 damage in here. That just kills them. I'm sorry, 7 or 14 damage, because 3.5 and 3.5 and all that. So as long as 14 or less HP, you can expect a Fireball to kill it. This is such a gigantic damage spike from second level spells. Like it's there's nothing comparable. You can't upcast any first level spell and come close to this damage. Burning Hands is doing a pitiful 5d6. This is doing 3d6 more than that in a way better area. Spells later level than it look down at it and go, wow, this is still outdamaging me when upcast. So you have things like the Circle of Death. I'm pretty sure it hits either the same or less damage than an upcast Fireball in around the same area. There are a lot of elements of the game very clearly point to this and say, you have to kind of on your character sheet say, well, I have a spell that does area of effect damage. Is this better than Fireball in some way? And if the answer is ever no, Fireball just goes, okay, well, I guess you don't need it on your character sheet. So it keeps a lot of other spells off of it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because you don't need that many high damage area of effect spells on your sheet.
Now, as a dungeon master, do you have ways to mitigate how your players from just blasting the crap out of everything all the time?
Yeah. What I would recommend if you are starting to DM and you're finding that, all right, my player's level like 5, 6, 7, I feel like every time they run into an encounter, they just auto kill it all with Fireball. You might want to reframe how you think about designing encounters. And this isn't something that I think is well explored or really well documented, but think about it. I would recommend thinking about things more like video games in that have monsters coming off from the side more frequently. Have your things spawn in, if you will, just come into the fight from different angles whenever you're fighting things. So if you do have an initial encounter with, let's say, kobolds, and your wizard out the gate goes, great, there's 8 of them in an area, I incinerate them. You incinerate them. It creates a big coffinous boom. The ground under rumbles and shakes all around of it. That's one of the 2 fireballs they have for the level, hopefully. If they're higher level, you got to deal with more than that. But then you have if you want this to be the set piece environment, if they're like defending a warren, now you have an excuse to run like 30 kobolds because you know the players can handle them if they group them correctly, if they manage them correctly. So you can just start adding on more by sending in more and more waves and sort of give them an inclination as to how many are left, how many are still willing to fight, and you can sort of attack and approach from different directions. You kind of Fireball sort of puts your feet to the fire and says, okay, now you have to give me interesting encounters. You can't just throw things at me in a straight line or we're going to just beat them all. So you're going to want to attack from the sides. You're going to want to have flanks. You're going to have more interesting battle maps with different layers of terrain. 3D space is really fun to play in with this. Fireball hits a large enough area that small dungeon encounters, it's going to be just really powerful in, especially early on because of the quantity of damage it deals. But you're going to be able to get a lot of more interesting and exciting fights that make players still feel awesome by using lots of small things that are literally put in the counters to die to the fireball. Like you plan out and say, all right, this group's goal is to eat a fireball. And that can make encounters a lot bigger, a lot more epic in scope. You can have the wizard feels like a badass, the fighter who then goes and charges the thing that has way more hit points that can soak a fireball that's maybe off to the side and not in fireball distance. Then you have that player showcasing what they're really good at too, while the wizard's handling the lots of little things. Your other players are handling the really big thing. The bard is inspiring the whole group. You have the rogue sneaking around, getting sneak attack damage from behind the big threat, while the wizard plays crowd control, right? You're encouraged to attack the problem from a lot of different directions and have a little more confidence the party can survive it, knowing they'll always have a fireball in their back pocket.
Yeah, I was thinking also there's other you mentioned environmental factors like terrain and stuff. I was thinking also flammable stuff,
Yeah.
There's times where you don't want to burn everything to the ground. And all right, I've got a group of kobolds out there, but they've also got a lot of flammable scrolls or something that I don't want to burn.
Or iconic encounter, you're delving into like an abandoned mine or a recently taken over mine by goblins or something, and the walls are thin and shaky. There's been some tremors recently, explosions. The wood supports aren't holding up too well as is. They're old and crooked and breaking down, and a loose fireball may in fact cause a cave-in, and that's going to be more damage to you and your friends than it is going to be the little goblins that you're dealing with the fireball. So there are definitely ways you can make it even so if you're like, all right, you've been relying a little bit too much on fireball, you can definitely put them in spaces where, if you cast fireball, you're going to light the powder keg and this whole place goes up. It is that kind of spell. You can navigate around that. You don't want to make it so that every encounter that you're ever facing for the rest of the time is on top of gunpowder, but you can definitely take breathers from it, right? You can be like, all right, you've had a lot of fireball the last 3 sessions. Let's put you in an environment where that's really unreasonable to cast. You have to rely on different resources.
Yeah, if a wizard takes fireball, you want them to have those fun fireball moments, but
absolutely,
you don't want them to get caught in the, like I think you talked about with Eldritch Blast before. That's the only thing they do. Yeah,
you want to see them do other things. You want to give them reasons, to use other spells. It's right. Fireball is going to be fun for a lot of time. It's going to be something that you will be planning around for the rest of the game. You will always know, all right, the wizard has fireball. That just means I have to throw either more kinds of little monsters at him or different big monsters that can take the hits, because that's just what the spell lends itself to. So yeah, if you want them to use the spells, present them with different challenges. Those different challenges, like Bob and I've already gone over, are dynamic and numerous. They do really ask you though, like again, this I think is the first big test, the DM exam, if you will, of all right, you're 5th level DMing. You now have to show that you can present encounters that still challenge a player with fireball. And that's hard. It genuinely is, especially if you're a new DM and you're trying to figure it out. You're like, man, I can't, everything I throw at them, they just waltz right over. I'm following the CR guidelines. Well, first off, I'm sorry that you read the CR guidelines. Truly, there are other resources on that are going to help you more than that. CR is not a great balancing factor. But second, you're going to have to try things out, get creative, practice. But yeah, it'll be fine at the end of the day. People are still going to be having fun, and it's a good learning experience to say the least. Fireball definitely is the kind of event, the kind of spell that will help you DM and help players feel badass and make the whole gaming experience really like quintessential Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. And it's so iconic. I thought this video was going to go on longer, but really it's a big ass ball of fire.
It is. I mean, we can quickly say why it's better than Lightning Bolt, and that's easy.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lightning Bolt does the same damage, but you rarely see Lightning Bolt, and you very often see Fireball. I actually if Sam had his magical way and got to build to the distance from the ground up, make it probably a lot worse, he wouldn't print Fireball and would only print Lightning Bolt. And the reason that I would do this is Lightning Bolt is a lot more interesting from a positioning standpoint because you have to be the one that is the bolt coming from, which means you have to care about where you're standing. With Fireball, you don't care where you're standing. You hit a better area because a line versus an area, most creatures aren't standing single file. Most creatures are spread to some degree, attacking, all running at you or whatever, or from the walls, crawling out, or coming from underground if they're ant kegs or whatever. They're going to be spread to some degree, and Fireball hits more of them way more often than you're going to be able to get with a line. Lightning Bolt does the same damage, but you're hitting way less creatures with way less consistency. You care about where you're moving. You care about the environment a lot more. Just like terrain and walls become a real ordeal, where with Fireball, you'd be like, yeah, I poke my head around and shoot over the corner, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's also got a 150-foot range, which is like a football field.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's half of a football field, or no, 300 yards, right? So not quite,
yeah, so
but
yeah,
it's a long distance. It's a long distance. Man,
yeah, all right.
The metric is not in my head for some reason, but yeah, I think you're right. In any case, Fireball hits a huge distance. It hits better areas than Lightning Bolt does. Lightning Bolt requires better positioning and requires you to try and find the best way to group monsters, whereas Fireball's like anything close. Yeah, okay, great, those ones. Which, yeah, it's really easy to be like, all right, I'm going to position the Fireball so that it exactly clips the corner of this one and this monster and this monster, and then you just have the party outlining right the sides of it, which can feel very gamey, and it's hard to do that with Lightning Bolt because, like, yeah, no, it's just that's the line, and if you're in the line, you're getting fried.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, Lightning Bolt's still going to be a good spell, but you never take it over Fireball because Fireball is just so much better. And then the ways it changes the game, the way people are used to it changing the game, I think progresses things in a more interesting direction too. So that's probably net positive.
All right, Sam, score.
Oh, this is a 5 out of 5. Fireball reshapes the game. You should take it on every character you can for the most part. It's easy. There's a reason it's so iconic. It's the damage spell standard. This will always be good. You will always be happy to have it. Encounters will shape around it. Yeah, it's glorious. Incredible.
All right, everyone. That was Fireball. Thank you, Sam, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we will see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.